Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. I am Dean once again, and I have Devin with me.
Hey everybody, hopefully everyone enjoyed their weekend. And honestly, it's not bad. We had Cinco de Mayo, we had May 4th. It was a good weekend for me.
Yeah, I was actually joking with my friends. I'm like, we have two holidays back to back because I was just with a couple of my buddies having dinner. Uh, Perks of having someone that lives literally 2 minutes away from me. So we're doing Cinco de Mayo with all our friends, and then yesterday was May the 4th. I don't really care about that franchise, to be honest, but I know a lot of my friends did, so they were doing stuff. But I was at home
I
watching
mean,
the regional, so I
behind
was doing
you,
my own thing.
I'll say behind me is two rows of Star Wars Funkos, so clearly I like Star Wars.
Yeah, but I've been playing more Magic the Gathering with my friends. A lot more Commander stuff.
I would say
So we
you're
did that
probably
on
playing Commander.
Saturday.
There's no way you're playing anything that's not Commander, right?
No, like my friend made the Captain America and Iron Man decks for Commander, so I've been playing those.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because since I'm so new to Commander, I'm looking at these. I'm like, I don't get the point. They're like, oh, you have to do something with like you throw the equipment. I'm like, oh, this is just tool drop. I'm using Pokemon terms like, yes, Dane, it's tool drop, and I can see their eyes rolling. It's not
um,
really tool drop, but it was a fun concept, and we had a nice time playing at one of our local card shops and just hanging with the guys. So that was
yeah.
my weekend.
They did a Final Fantasy crossover, and I was like, oh, if the Final Fantasy cards are good, I might go back to I might go back to Magic a little bit. I'm like, my favorite characters are not part of the Final Fantasy set. I'm good. So I love Final
Yeah, I
Fantasy
know
X.
my friends. I think they built a deck that's centered around that. Like I said, I'm still pretty new, but this isn't a Magic the Gathering Commander podcast. This is a Pokemon trading card game podcast, and we had some stuff happen this weekend.
Yeah, we really did on both the competitive and the non-competitive stuff. If you want to see it all aspects for sure.
Yeah, I know over in Japan they had the Champions League in Aichi, which is basically destined rivals for us.
Hmm.
So we don't have the results for that. We wanted to talk about it, but I can't find anything anywhere on the internet, at least at the time of recording. But one really cool thing I want to bring up is that they have both a standard and expanded tournament there. So
Oh,
I thought that was
really?
really cool because we don't see expanded tournaments much at all anymore.
Not anymore. No, they did a season almost 7 8 years ago where
Hmm.
it was half the season was expanded, half the season was standard, and honestly, that was a chaos of a season because
I
expanded
think
is so hard to get a hold of. But now they reprinted A specs, so I think if they want to dabble into an expanded meta in terms of state or regionals, I think they could. But when A specs were like so dominant, like you had the computer searches, the dowsing machines, the life dues,
mhm.
you had to spend money to get those cards in order to be competitive in that format.
Yeah, and I actually saw a tweet during the weekend where in the top cut, I think it was like 6 out of 8 cuts were all Reggie Drago. So
That sounds right.
Reggie Drago isn't dead and expanded. So if you play Reggie Drago in standard and want to play it, you have a nice space to do it.
Yeah, Double Dragon Energy probably Reggie Draco probably feasts on that.
Oh yeah, like Double Dragon, and then you have so many other different types of special energy, and it's just so easy to attach in expanded.
That
So
you have
it's just super powerful, and also the attackers you have,
yeah,
like what is it? The GGN Garchomp with what was the other Pokemon?
you have Dragon Call
Machamp Garchomp?
Gabite.
Oh
Yeah,
no,
yeah. So you have Dragon Call Gabite, which will go into a Garchomp. You have a whole bunch of really strong Dragon attackers.
I'm
Um,
talking about the tag team.
the tag team, Dragon Tag Team.
It's Garchomp with I forgot the tag team partner, but has the GX attack is like GGN, and it basically like you can win in the first turn and expand it. It's like so broken. I can't remember how exactly it is. I can talk to my friends. They have that deck
I
built
know
with.
I know the card you're talking about. I just can't remember what else is on there, and it is legitimately like busted.
It's Garchomp something. Machamp? No, that
No,
doesn't
no,
sound
no,
right.
no.
I don't know. We'll
It would have
figure
to
it
be a
out
it would
later.
have to be a Dragon
But
Tag.
yeah, I heard most of the Top Cup was just Regidrago V-Star, so take that with information as you will, I guess, if you're planning on going to any expanded tournaments.
No. Expanded so degenerate, don't do it.
Yeah,
Like, I'm just gonna
my
say
shop
it
does
that
it a
way.
little
Don't
bit.
do
We
it.
try to make it balanced, so. And then they actually revealed some cards, specifically some reprints are coming our way.
Hmm.
Not with Destin Rivals. I believe it'll be the next set, which may be for Worlds.
Yeah, it's a black and
But
white set.
sorry, go ahead.
It's a black and white set. We saw the cover art that has the Reshiram and Zekrom. We got the Reshiram and Zekrom EX.
Hmm.
And then we got some other cards coming from that set. So it's going to be all Unova.
Yeah, and with that, we're getting a couple reprints with Air Balloon. So Retreat's going to be 2 less, which is going to be enormous.
Yeah, universal retreat reduction instead of conditional is always really, really good.
So we have that coming our way. We have Prism Energy coming our way.
Oh, I didn't see the
There's
Prism Energy. Oh, that's busted.
Yeah, on basic Pokemon, it's any energy at one time.
Hmm.
And then they're reprinting triple acceleration energy and making it ignition energy.
Yeah.
So still have to discard it at the end of your turn, but has to be, it's only a triple energy to evolution Pokemon.
Yeah, but if it's attached to a basic, it's a single colorless.
Yeah, so but you still have to discard it.
Hmm.
So that's getting reprinted, and then the one that a lot of people are talking about is Dynamotor Electric being
I
reprinted,
I
like word
don't.
for word.
Yeah, no, it is, and I just don't see the hype behind it because I think we had Dynamotor come back not so long ago, and it made almost no impact to the format. It used to be like a staple. It made electric decks really, really broken back in the day, but I don't think it's a strong enough ability anymore.
I think paired with electric generator, it may be strong enough to be viable. It does give lightning more energy acceleration, so that electric generator, I can see like say Iron Hands EX getting that powered up really quickly, turn 2, and or even just like some other Pokemon that needs a lot of energy. So we'll see how that goes. The one Pokemon I'm actually very interested in, it's not necessarily a reprint, but they're making Embor being basically fire
Fire
Baxcalibur.
Fandango. Yeah, the Fire Fandango, that is a reprint. Now, it isn't a straight reprint, like the card itself is different, but the ability is a reprint. And Fire Fandango was really good back in the day. Like you said, it's
Hmm.
Fire Caliber, but it's really, really good for fire decks because typically fire Pokemon have high energy cost attacks. So as early as stage 2, you can start flowing your fire energy onto your board.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to my friends. So shout out to Jason and Eric for this insight. Actually, pair that with the Ethan's Cargo coming out in Destin Rivals, because for triple fire, you can discard up to 5 energy and does 70 damage for each energy you discard.
Hmm.
So that's perfect synergy. So power up your Macargo, discard it, use like Superior Energy Retrieval, Energy Retrieval, Energy Recycler. That's game printed in Destin Rivals as well.
Hmm.
And you have a bunch of good ways to get your finer energy back into play with that Embor and Macargo lineup. And that's all single prize attackers too.
Yeah, I think the only other piece that is going to be an issue for the Fire Fandango is the lack of reliable energy recursion. Like you said, there is superior energy retrieval, there's energy retrieval, energy recycler, we have super rod, but fire needs a lot of energy to do that, so I'm not sure how often you're going to be able to stream those attacks.
Well, you
Um,
have the Ethan's Ho EX coming out as well, where you can get 2 energy and attach it to your Ethan's Pokemon.
yeah, I
So you
mean,
can do that and pair it with the chart with the Armarouge and move it to the active. I think there's enough pieces there to make a fire deck like that work. I think it will require some time and patience and like finessing to get that deck going, but I think there's something there for Worlds or at least for next season.
yeah, because this will be the post-Destined Rivals meta, so assume NAIC is Destined Rivals. It would be probably Worlds at earliest that we see these cards be able to interact with each other.
Exactly. And worst case scenario, I think all these pieces will be good for a Fire GLC deck, being
Oh
able to
yeah.
get your energy back into play or stuff like that. So we'll have that discussion probably later this summer about like how that card will impact whatever format we see fit with it.
Yeah.
So that was released during the Aichi Champions League. But during the Champions League, there was a major event, a regional here in North America in Milwaukee. So Milwaukee was this weekend, and it was won by none other than Raging Bolt. So finally, a tournament where Guardy did not win.
It's interesting that Raging Bolt won because a lot of people thought that Raging Bolt was going to take a downslide, and it really didn't.
I will say it didn't have the best conversion rate, but I think it's because the number of top players playing the deck, they're all playing Dragon Ball, they're all playing Guardy. I don't think anyone was really focusing on the Raging Bolt to get it optimized. And then we see it won by Christian Labella, which he is a top player from the Greater Toronto area. He is no stranger to making top cuts or even finals. Like I remember seeing him play in the finals at the Toronto Regionals in 2023 against Piper. So he is definitely a phenomenal player, and he deserves this win. And he went into Top Cut being first seed at 10:02. Like he played the deck really well throughout the weekend. But I think one thing to really notice is that this had a 14-player Top Cut, which is almost it almost went into a top 16. We're in VGC for so if you don't understand, VGC does a top 16 Top Cut while we do top 8 or whatever our ASM is. So we almost had to replicate VGC for once.
Yeah, and 14 people, like you and I were talking, where we were trying to break the math down, and we are attributing it to the one less round. So there's less match points at stake, so more people were tying in the bottom end of that bubble.
Yeah, so it was just interesting to see that. I knew it was just a matter of time until we get a giant Top Cut. It's just we've been fortunate enough to where I think 12 was the max at one point, but now we got into the 14. And then really most of the Top Cut was Dragapult, either the Dragapult, straight Dragapult, or with the Dusknoir, which 7 out of 14 Dragapults, that's still a lot.
And they pretty much had to cannibalize each other in order to get to the top four. Like when they came to the semifinal round, like they basically had to go through each other in order to get to the top seeds.
Yeah, and I don't know, it just solidifies that Dragapult is the BDIF. I know we keep saying it. It always does really well these tournaments, and the fact that there's 2 variants of it, it's mind blowing that this is such a versatile deck. Also in the Top Cut was 2 Gardevoirs and 2 Zoroarks. So all those, ironically enough, were seeds 3 through 14. And then the top 2 seeds was 1 being Raging Bolt, and then 2 being Joltik, being the only ones of those decks in the Top Cut.
And it's interesting. I think the other piece that we were talking about is, like you mentioned, there's 2 Zoroarks, where everyone was just asking the question, when is this going to break through? And it did a little bit last week, but it really made its like final stamp of, yes, I am top tier now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even just more than just 2 people in the top cut, I think it's been optimized, it's been kind of figured out, and it's more than just trade is good. It's the end archetype is good, and people have figured those cards out, those combination of cards out.
Yeah, and if you actually look at Lucas Zing's 9th place Zoroark list, there's one new card in there that a lot of people are like, what is this? And it's the Bombardier EX. And at first, I was questioning the same thing, like, why is this in the deck? I don't get it. But I'm pretty sure it's in there for the first attack being the fast carrier for a single colorless energy, so you can just attach for your turn. And if you go first, you can use this attack during your first turn, search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon, and put them onto your bench, and then shuffle your deck.
Oh yeah, that's definitely like it doesn't punish you going first.
No, not at all. It's actually a really great card. Single retreat cost, 200 HP. It's kind of bulky, especially in the beginning. Retreat it out, try to get it out of play. Yeah, it's going to be on your bench for the rest of the game. But to be fair, Pheasantipity is also a liability. Depending on what the other cards or whatever decks you're going to, the other anything can be a liability. So having the Bomb Beater, okay, you're losing 2 prize cards, but you're actually wanting to be behind the prize trade anyway to take advantage of just like trying to win by doing a bunch of spread.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's if you're targeting the Bombardier, you are not taking out one of the ends Pokemon, which is honestly the actual threat on the board because you Zoroark copies ends Pokemon. So if you're just allowing Zoroark to copy another Pokemon and taking out that one it can't utilize, you're really not in a lost position. Yeah, you give up 2 cards, but then ends Zoroark is.
Yeah, even if you give up the Bombardier, it's 2 prize cards, but it gives up the new added bench space, and you can put down End's Restroom, you can put down a Munkidori. It just opens up whole new line of play that you didn't have before because of the Bombardier on your bench or even in your active spot. So I think it's a good sacrificial lamb for this type of deck because you do play the Defiance Band. So okay, now Defiance Band is in play, and you can even do more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So I think that's actually a really cool um, tweak that the top players, have made to this deck.
Mhm. And then on top of just like talking about the top cut, right? Like every single tournament, you and I, we go through the day two, we look for lists, and the first list I found was this Greninja Blaziken deck. Now the reason why I see it and I gravitated toward it is because of what I played against in the second match of the Excelgor video that we did last week, and I am actually very like I'm gonna probably be keeping an eye on this archetype going forward for the rest of at least this season and maybe into the next season to see how it can grow and adapt because it is super versatile. I didn't realize how strong this archetype was. I thought when I was playing against it against Excelgor, it was one of those kind of like meme archetypes that kind of we're just kind of playing around with some mechanics because you have the Enzork for trade, you have the Blaziken for energy recursion, and you have the Greninja, which it hits for fighting with water energy, and it's just one of those weird decks. But I'm like, oh wow, this is actually good, and it's actually established, and it's going to grow.
Yeah, it has so much synergy with itself because okay, you can do the second attack with Greninja, you're losing the energy, but then you have the Blaziken to put the energy back on, and you can do that sniping attack over and over again. Or like worst case scenario, one energy cost or one energy attachment, 170, and then you're cherry picking the cards you want for your next turn.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically like putting a not necessarily a checkmate situation to your opponent, or like, okay, 170, I have what I need for turn. You better Iono me, or you better hand destruct me. You're putting your opponent in a tough situation to like maybe adjust what they want to do just so you don't do what you want to do.
Yeah,
So
no,
I like that, and it's really I think Blaziken is such an underrated card because it makes a lot of decks work. Granted, it is a stage 2. It can be difficult to set up, but once you get the Blaziken out, you can power up so many Pokemon really quickly because the Seething Spirit ability isn't just for fire energy; it's for any energy. So it's
yes,
just a great energy accelerator. It's a tanky Pokemon on the bench, and it can attack as well. As long as you play a fire energy in your list, you can do 200 damage. Like
yeah,
it's
and
just a all around card.
yeah, it's a good card. We obviously showcased it during the Mammoth video, but I think Greninja is the best partner for it because again, like you said, there's so much synergy between the two where Greninja can put a lot of pressure on with both attacks, and Blaziken can just support it. And obviously, the piece that really kind of ties them both together is Zoroark. Like the trade ability is so good. Not only can you just put an energy into the discard pile, you get 2 more cards, and you can kind of just fill your hand up through either Greninja or through Zoroark, and kind of just give yourself a game state advantage just by hand size alone and resource size. to where you're really just making your opponent have to shrink you down. And with trade, you are Iono proof. You are unfair stand proof. Like they can do anything. They can, as long as they put you down to one card, you can trade and start growing that hand back up. So it's really interesting.
Mhm.
Like I said, when I was playing against a Selgar, I'm like, oh, this is an interesting archetype. Now I'm like, I'm interested to see how this archetype grows over time. Very similar to how we said, and Zora, or the Ends archetype is going to grow over time. I'm thinking this will be another one that's going to slowly grow behind it.
Exactly. So this is something we'll look at, may become a future rogue deck of the week for us. But another deck that caught my eye, and it was actually on stream, was the Slacking EX. That like came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I saw that list too. I was like, what is this? And I look, I'm like, you can't attack unless your opponent has EX or Vs in play. I was like, all right, it's a stage 2, so you're not doing any early game pressure by any means.
Mm-mm.
And now it's like, all right, how many decks, how many archetypes don't have EX or Vs?
Like if you look in every deck that made day 2, the only the only auto losses I see here is Frostlass Munkidori,
Uh-huh.
because I believe that is a completely single prize deck,
It is, or at
and
least most variants of it is.
then for Alligator. Those are the only two auto losses, and there's only two for Alligators in day 2, and three Frostlass Munkidoris in day 2. So
Yeah,
the likelihood of you hitting those decks are very little.
yeah,
So the Saking's it's bulky. It doesn't take a lot of energy to attack,
mm-mm.
and you have the boomerang energy to help recycle the energy once you have to discard it. You're basically get your 2 energy, use the discard of the boomerang, but then it goes back to the Pokemon.
Yeah,
So I found that very interesting. It's definitely a deck that no one expects. It's all colorless. I will say take advantage while you can before Destined Rivals comes out, because once that Team Rocket's Watchtower comes out, that deck is done.
yeah. Destined Rivals is going to shake up a lot, and I'm excited for those cards to come into format. But right now, like you said, there's a lot of really interesting archetypes and just combinations of cards. Like that slacking is such a meta call. Like it's one of those situations where like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's burning an EX deck, so let me just do 280 for 2 energy, use the boomerang, so you never once you're set up, you're going, and then you can start focusing on setting up another one. I think part of the issue with that deck, 280 isn't enough for some archetypes.
No, it's not, especially when you have a lot of those stage 2s like the Garvar, Dragapult. You need to get some setup damage going on. And if you don't have an easy way to do that, it's just not hitting enough. Like, yeah, you're tanky as well, but is that enough nowadays in this format where one shots are so common?
One shots and high HP combination. Like if you can't take out the Dragapult in one shot, and you're doing 2 shot, you might as well just have an easier 2 shot. And I say
Yeah,
easier meaning like a lower energy cost 2 shot.
yeah. So we'll see if Slacking gets off the ground more with the next couple tournaments. We do have a couple more before NEIC.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was a flash in the pan. Maybe people are going to see this and be inspired. We'll wait and see. I think there was another deck we wanted to look at on the rogue side that made day 2, right, Devin?
The only other thing that I was super interested in it was Hop Zacian. I don't know if a lot of people would consider it rogue. I still do. I don't think it's made enough of an impression on the higher levels of the power tiers. But I'm loving the same thing that's happening with the ends deck, right? It's slow start and it's slowly starting to creep up, and I'm loving the different variants and what people are doing with it. And in the day 2 of this tournament, there's 2 different kind of philosophies with the ends deck. One of them was with Iron Valiant EX, and the other one was without it, which made it more or
Mm-hmm.
less a what people think ends our Hop Zacian would be, where it's like, all right, I'm gonna do a whole bunch. I'm just doing 120 for no damage or no energy. Well, with the Iron Valiant, it's like I'm gonna hit you at 240 every turn, and I can just pivot because I have free retreat.
Yeah, this deck was actually on stream as well. I think in round 5 or so, and was going against a top level player playing the Godango, and it won. In game 3, it just had that nice donk. It started off with the Hopsashian, and all I needed was the Choice Band and the Postwick, and it
Mhm.
had it so easily.
Yeah, you can get that combination so quickly with that deck. Like you have early game pressure with those the hops kind of archetype, and then if you want to have late game sustainability, especially that Iron Valiant version of it, it's like, all right, I'm gonna do a whole bunch of damage. I'm gonna rush, or I'm gonna do the Russian and retreat with the Iron Valiant, and then you just keep on resetting it because the Iron Valiant is free retreat because of the booster capture or the future
Yeah.
capsule energy or attachment card. So it's like, wow, I never thought of those combination of cards until I saw it. I'm like, this makes so much sense.
Yeah, it's just those players that just keep at it, and it shows like their dedication to the deck, even though it may not be the most meta deck at all. Like they made a deep run and they did fairly well, and having those couple players and make day 2 with it, it just shows that the power level that this deck can have,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's not the only trainer deck that can do well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all the trainers that we're seeing right now have capability of having a high ceiling, and we're only going to get more with Destined Rivals. Like we're getting Cynthia, we're getting Ethan, we're getting Team Rocket. Like trainer cards are going to be taking over the format very soon. I'm super excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I was watching some of the Aichi Champions League, and they had a Cynthia's Garchomp list in their day 2, and it was actually working really well. And I love the synergy with that deck. It's something I may consider practicing as well. And I know my buddy is like talking so highly of this deck. Is like, I can't wait for this to come out. Cynthia Garchomp is really good after watching it. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. This can have a lot. This could be scary to go against for sure. So that's a discussion for a future episode.
Yeah,
So we'll put a pin on that for now. But I think let's go into our main topic for this week. What do you think, Devin?
yeah, absolutely. It's something that I brought up a couple weeks ago, and we've been kind of like just wanting to sit down and we wanted to make sure it was making sense before we brought it up. And it was there's cards that everyone loves, there's cards that everyone hates, and then there's cards where you feel like you see it a lot and you don't understand why.
Yeah.
And I wanted to really bring up a handful of cards that I don't understand why we see it as often, and then you counter back, go, well, there's some cards I don't think we see enough of, and I think that's a really good compare and contrast for that is 3 cards today that we feel are overused or overvalued, and 3 cards we feel that are not used enough and are severely undervalued, and you should consider putting them into the deck if they make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the first card I brought up, and I've been very, very vocal about this card for months, is Squawkabilly EX. I do not understand why this card is as popular as it is. And it's not because I don't think it is not a powerful card. I think it is an unnecessary card. And I don't see enough decks, enough archetypes to justify its one of or two of slots that in the deck that I understand the counter argument to me is, well, it's early game consistency, but is it? Because really, to me, it's an aggro card in an aggro deck, and we're not in an aggro meta. So I feel like it's just a wasted deck, a wasted card that is a 2 prize liability late game very easily.
Yeah, because I remember when you brought this card up, I was defending it because I like the card in my list, but I also play more aggro. But I think that's where the issue lies. People, they're like you said, they're using the excuse, oh, it's consistency. It's consistency. I can get all what I need my first turn. Well, okay, cool. That's nice and all. But what really hurts it now is that we don't have cards like Collapse Stadium. Because when I play this in my Trap Ghost list, you can do what you need to do and then play Collapse Stadium and get rid of that liability. We don't have that option anymore. So if you're going to play something like that, you better have a way to get it out of play to where it's not an easy two prizer, especially when you have Joltik box out there becoming more and more prevalent. That's an easy three prizer. It's not just two prizes anymore. That's a three prizer with Amp You Very Much because it's weak to lightning.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to make this commitment, you better have a very good reason. And I feel like people just don't.
Yeah, and on top of, like you said, the meta is, especially with Joltik box, it become three prize liability. We're also in a meta right now with counter gain and counter catcher, where if your opponent has two prizes left and you have one, they can counter catcher that without having to use a boss's order or a prime catcher. They can just use a basic item card because they are behind on prizes to take the last two prizes they need, or to play that chess game move of just leapfrogging you into a prize trade. It doesn't have to be that 2 versus 1. It can be a 3 versus 2. And as long as they're behind on prizes, they can get a win condition out of that. So it's very, to me, it isn't strong enough to warrant that spot. And I would have said the same about Lumineon V. Like Lumineon V, yes, grab as supporter. Yes, that's historically always been a really good ability, but I don't think it was a good enough ability in the most recent pre-rotation meta as well. I think both those cards, to me, fall in the same camp of, yes, you can easily sit there and be like, consistency, 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 but I will turn around and say, but look at the meta you're making that argument in. There's too many cards that threaten both those cards super easily to make it worth the early game pressure or early game stabilization that you could be creating with either one of those.
Yeah, I say right now, if you're going to play like a Terra box like list where you're playing Area Zero Underdefs, that's the only deck to me that will make sense because once that stadium gets out of play and you have more than 5 on your bench, that's an easy choice to get out of play, and then you're getting rid of all your liabilities. But if you're not playing a deck that has something like that, like I said, it better be worth the inclusion. If not, you are risking 2 prize cards there.
Mm-hmm. And then the next card on the list is a little bit controversial.
Oh, yeah.
And I say this, I think I'm just going to throw this one out first, is Munkidori. Munkidori seems to be everyone's new favorite card.
And that's why I put it on the list because I think it's the new shiny toy. Mm-hmm. It's a basic Pokemon, and you only need a single dark energy, and it's quote unquote easy to throw in any deck. And I just think, to me, unless it makes sense, I think there's a lack of creativity on how you build your decks. And now you're like, oh, I can easily take out the Bidoof. Okay, cool. But like, how is that really moving your board state or the game state?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you have something else in your deck that helps with your win con better than just throwing 2 cards in that may not go with your deck?
Yeah, like last week, that the Excelgor deck ran 1 Munkidori in it. Yes, it already needed darkness energy, so it made sense. But it didn't make sense once you realized that Excelgor was never going to survive a hit. If you don't have damage counters on your side of the board, you can't pass damage counters over. So these low HP, single prize, or even stage 2 non-EX decks, right, where you're not expecting to survive hit over hit. You're just playing a longer game because you're making your opponent take 6 prizes. Does Munkidori really fit in that mold? And I don't think so. Now, there's other decks in terms of EX stage 1s or basic EXs where Munkidori still doesn't fit the mold. Like, if you don't expect to tank a hit and you're not naturally running darkness energy, should you shoehorn 1 or 2 darkness energies with a Munkidori just so you can pass off 30 damage every once in a while?
Yeah. And that's where I'm at, because it's like, it's so easy to do. It's so easy to make that adjustment in your list. And I'm like, yeah, but could you put in more consistency? Could you find a way where, like, okay, if you're not getting KO'd, can you take advantage of that? Or does the movement 30 off that Pokemon even matter at the end? Like, okay, cool, you're moving that 30 off, but you're still going to get KO'd the next turn. Did that do anything to your win condition? Did that do anything to add to your damage output?
I'll say,
If
did
you're
it
still
fix your
two-shotting as well, what's the point of the card?
yeah, if there's no math fixing at all, like if 30 damage is the difference between a 1 and a 2 shot, fantastic, it makes sense. But there's very niche situations where that is the math. And we're not
Yeah,
seeing it probably as much as people think we are seeing it.
yeah, because like the Blissey deck that got second place in Monterey, that played for Munkidoris, but you have a Pokemon that's tanky, and you have a Pokemon that takes colorless energy to attack. So you have that freedom to put in the dark energy, and then you can take advantage of it. That makes sense. I don't want to see y'all playing like a fire deck, toss in 2 or 3 dark energies and a Munkidori, just so like, oh, it's going to save me. But is it? Or can you put in some fire Pokemon for your consistency? What about that new Chi-Yu that's been popping up that is a nice comeback attacker? What about playing Volcanion and get the burn damage? Like, there's more creative ways to achieve the same goal than to shoehorn a card that everyone's playing.
Yeah, and it's not even I'm saying it's a bad card. In the right stacks, it makes in Gardevoir, it makes so much sense. Because
Yeah.
Gardevoir, you don't even have to tank a hit with Gardevoir. Gardevoir already puts damage on itself. So you can just do what Gardevoir wants you to do and then pass it off and be like, cool, I just generated damage for myself.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense with Dragapult because yeah, it's an extra energy, but Dragapult is tanky. 300 HP is nothing to scoff at. Like you're playing those pieces around. Um,
And Luminous Energy fits in that deck so well already with the Terra energy cost. So, okay, what if you put it on the Munkidori? That's not a big deal, and we get that.
yeah, it's just like if you're just have nothing, you have no better idea what to do. You're like, oh, let's put Munkidori in. Those to me, it's seeing it in the lower HP decks make no sense because you're not. It's just it's a waste of a bench spot and waste of deck space, in my opinion. Now, I've played decks that utilize it very well, but I've also seen decks that have it in there because on paper it looks like they're synergistic, but they're just not.
Yeah.
And then
So,
the last card I want to bring up before we talk about the underrated MVPs is a card that again I've been very critical of that I don't see the value of, and that is Badoo. Talking about a card that goes in Dragon Ball, right?
oh yeah.
I understand Badoo is a free retreater. I understand Badoo has a free attack. I understand Badoo also item blocks with that free attack. I understand that it can slow the game down early game and make sure that you can stabilize your board. I still don't see why that is in decks as often as it is.
I agree. I was actually the one, actually not even me. I was talking to our good friend Joe. He was like, "Yeah, man, I don't get Badoo. I think it's being used way too much, and I feel like the problem is it's so good, especially in this format. It revolutionized this format.
I
Ever
don't
since
know
it
if
was introduced, it changed how we play this game.
I don't know
There
if
is
I would
no
use
doubt about that.
I don't know if I would use the term revolutionized. I think it shifted the format out of fear, but I don't think it actually impacted the format as big as everyone thought it would. Because a lot of the players do not remember playing in a format of item lock and do not remember how to remember playing in a format of item hate. And I say item hate meaning decks and attacks that actually punished you for ditching your items. I'm talking about Trashalanche, Garbodor. So a lot of players had to readjust how they made their decks to play around item lock because their decks were so item heavy because we've gone such a long period of time without any form of item hate that players were like, oh, this is going to shift everything. And it did. It shifted deck building. But I don't think the decks and I don't think the meta got affected to the point where it is a revolutionary. I think it is a byproduct of fear that didn't have the impact everyone thought it would have. It's really only making it's making a bigger impact in one archetype and one archetype only right now.
Well, I'll say a couple decks, but yes, it's definitely a top level deck. So you see it in Dragapult, you see it in Gardevoir. Um, those are really the two main decks we see it now. Once in a while, you'll see it in Terra Box to slow it down, but it's like one of those splashable cards. It slows down the meta, so it's good if you need that setup time. But other than that, like if you have other ways to slow your opponent down or disrupt your opponent, I think it's just to me it's my argument for these cards is it stifles creativity. It stifles all the diversity of the card set we have, saying that like we only have to play this card. Like I have to have a Badoo in here. If not, my first turn is not good. It's like no, that's not true. Like okay, if you have it, if you need time to set up your bench, add in a Bombardier EX. Go first, and single energy attachment. Boom, you got your bench set up, and you're not using an item for that.
Mhm.
It just yeah. I don't like the stifling that these cards have when it comes to deck building. And don't get me wrong, we admit multiple times on this podcast we are not the best deck builders. But you don't need these cards. You don't need a Badoo to help save your stage 1, stage 2 deck. You just need to find a way to be creative to outlast your opponent.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. It's don't get me wrong, all three of the cards we discussed, all three of these ones that really are a violator of the overvalued role here, they are good cards in the right deck. But that's the point, right? You have to find the right spot for these cards. And people put them in spots that probably they don't belong in. So it makes it oversaturated. And at the end of the day, as a tester and as a tech builder, you're like, I don't understand why this is here. And then you have to go back to the drawing board. But we have three cards that you actually suggested that have the inverse impact, where people do not appreciate their value enough and should consider them more often when they're building their lists.
Yeah, so with this conversation, I know we were kind of dissing, talking bad about some cards, but I also want to bring up a light of like, hey, there's some cards out there that people forget exist. Like, yeah, you still see them in some lists, but I feel like right now in this format, they're being very underutilized. And I want to start off the conversation with Iron Bundle with the Hyperblower ability.
Mm-hmm. And Iron Bundle used to be very prevalent. It used to be in enough lists where you saw it as a one-off, you saw it as a utility card, people were using it in situations. And then over the last two formats or so, it kind of just slowly got phased out for other cards. Now, don't get me wrong, in the last 2 or 3 sets, we've gotten a lot of really good gusting cards and in board repositioning cards where I can see why you cut an Iron Bundle for a counter catcher or for a Pokemon catcher or for a Prime catcher. I can see those value switches, but not every deck is running counter catcher. Not every deck is running the Prime catcher as its A spec. So maybe having a non-boss Gust card is advantage in itself.
I will say, I think one thing that hurts the Iron Bundle in this current format compared to other formats is that the way you set up your bench is really quick now. I remember playing this card in my Charlotte list, and it saved me in my round 2 because people start their hand, they'll have their active and only one bench and pass. I'm like, okay, cool. Iron Bundle, give me that card you're trying to save, and I'm going to knock it out. Nowadays, with Buddy Poffin, you easily get 2 cards there, and with Hyper Blower, your opponent chooses what Pokemon to promote, so they're just going to give you one that is least impactful for their setup. So I can see why it's not being played that much right now, but at the same time, it is a great non-support gust, and if you can catch your opponent on something that they don't want to give up but have to, I think that is very beneficial. Plus, it gives up a bench space. So you play it, use the Hyper Blower ability, and then you have a space on your bench for another Pokemon that can do. Yeah. I love this card in my Trap Ghost list. It helps accelerate my gameplay, gets the Pokemon out of my deck into my discard, and then with Night Stretcher, I can utilize that strategy over and over again.
Uh-huh.
It's not just a one done card, especially with the amount of recursion we have in this format as well.
Yeah, no, it being a Night Stretcher target as well means it's live anytime you have an open bench spot. So,
Exactly.
and then the second card you added to the list, I was a little unsure of. I'll be honest. I didn't see the value to it. But when you explained some of the strategies that you could use with it, I was like, okay, I see it because I've seen similar strategies in the past. And that is the Tatsugiri that is the order up Tatsugiri, right?
No, attract customers.
Attract customers. I knew it was something to do with food.
Yep. The order up isn't that an attack in VGC for Dundozo?
Yeah, with Tatsugiri.
Yeah, there we go.
That's
There we
where
go.
it was.
Even though I love playing that Tatsugiri Dundozo deck when it first came out in Scarlet Violet, that was like my pet deck. I try to get that thing good, but that's another conversation. But yeah, with the attract customers Tatsugiri, where you look at the top 7 cards of your list, I believe 7,
Yeah.
and then you get a supporter. Like, it's basically a free Pokégear without using that item.
And the only drawback has to be in the active spot, right?
Yes. So ideally, it's your pivoter for turn. So whenever your active gets knocked out, you put the Tatsugiri. Most of these decks play a rescue board, so you put the rescue board on your Tatsugiri. Track customers, retreat into what attacker you want. You get your supporter you need for turn, and you have a pivoter. So just in case if your plan goes haywire, you have a single prize liability versus a multi-prize liability. And it's so easy to set up over and over again. So if it does get KO'd for some reason, Night Stretcher, put it like bench, find a way into the active, and you have your supporter way to get your supporter every single turn. It is not necessarily the best option, but I think it's good enough to earn a spot in any list.
I think if we had a format with more hard switch cards, it would be better. Because right now we have a format with a lot of retreat reduction cards, but not a lot of hard switch cards. So if we get a format with more switching cards, like I would say more than just actually the standard card switch, but maybe one or two more cards where you could start moving pieces around without utilizing your retreat for the turn on top of the Tatsugiri, so you can put more than one thing in the active. I think it can become better in a format like that. It just we're not there right now. But there's still another year or so that this card can exist in a format that hopefully gains more switching cards. So it can be a substitute for the Pokégears. Because some decks are running 2 to 4 Pokégears. So if you can just take the Pokégears out for hard switches, you can make that Tatsugiri your unlimited Pokégear effectively.
And I will say, I think Tatsugiri really finds its value towards maybe the late game when you're behind and you're getting Iono'd a lot. Because if you can't use your supporters, they're just going to be in your deck. And if you keep getting Iono to a low hand size, this is an easy way to use the Pokégear effect without having the item Pokégear. So it doesn't get KO because really, unless they know the true value of that card, they're not going after the Tatsugiri. They're going after something else on your bench.
Yes.
So ultimately, you have a free supporter every single turn unless you just whiff your search. Which, if you play something with a deck with a lot of supporters, especially late game where you kind of already thinned down, you maybe only have supporters left, then that's where the value really shines with this card.
Yeah, and searching for supporters from the top X from your deck has always been a super strong ability. It's been reprinted several ways on several different Pokemon. Most of the times on evolution Pokemon of either stage 1 or stage 2. So the fact this is on a basic, that how they balance it out is it has been the active. So it's a very strong ability that we've seen over and over again over years of Pokemon. And like I said, if we had a format with a little more hard switch cards, I think this would be seen significantly more before being considered an undervalued play.
I agree with that. I think with last format pre-rotation having like switch card and more switching options definitely made this card shine a lot more. But we never know where this is going. This is a Scarlet Violet card, so we do have at least another year, if not 2, with it. And we'll see what the direction Pokemon goes when it comes to retreat options.
And then the last card on today's list is a card that I've seen you've been talking to me about this card in more than one deck that you throw in for a very long time. And it just makes sense with how Pokemon is kind of telling us to build decks, and that's the Genesect with the Ace block ability. Or Ace
Yeah,
spec block
I've been
ability.
trying to put this in everything I play.
And it makes sense, right? If this has a tool card attached to it, your opponent can't play an Ace spec. Like that is I know we talked about in a couple episodes ago that you don't have to play an Ace spec, but you kind of are, and everyone is. So why don't you just turn a card in your opponent's deck off just because you have a card in play?
Exactly. Granted, this card is really good in tool heavy decks, but this is a direction that Pokemon is trying to nudge us towards. Like almost every deck plays a tool, and it's not really good for the TM decks, the technical machine decks, since those have to get discarded. But with Rescue Board, Bravery Charm, the Ancient Booster Capsule, Future Booster Capsules, you have tool cards stay in play the whole entire game now, and there isn't really an easy way to get rid of tools as there was with last format. We don't have what is that
We don't have Lost
card? Lost
Vacuum. We
Vacuum.
don't have like Pocket got Guzma, but there is no tool disruption right now. And honestly, with most decks running 3 to 4 Arven anyway, and Arven goes pick a tool card, like why wouldn't you? If you're running more than 2 Arven in your deck, you should have Genesect in your deck, I think. I think the
Oh
synergy
yeah,
between those two cards in your deck makes perfect sense.
yeah, and I love how it reads too. Because one cool thing about the ability is that even with Tool Jammer or sorry Jamming Tower in play, the ability is still live because Jamming Tower just turns off the effects of the tools. And the way the ability reads is, as long as a tool is attached, it doesn't mean if the ability isn't the effect is in play or not. It just needs attached to it. It's kind of like the Brute Bonnet with the Ancient Booster Capsule. So even with Jamming Tower, people are like, oh, I got you. It's like, haha, read again.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't. Like, don't play your unfair stamp against me.
Hmm.
So I love that, especially in I like playing tool heavy decks. I've been doing that for at least a year and a half now. And people have been trying to find a way to disrupt their opponent more and more. And you kind of see the Genesect being recently added in Dragapult. They're playing the rescue board, attaching it to the Genesect, and they're slowing down their opponent's unfair stamp, or they're slowing down their opponent's ability to play Sparkling Crystal or even Precious Trolley. Those are the main ace specs we see now, and those are so impactful for your opponent. The the ability to shut it off makes your opponent rethink their whole entire strategy.
Especially those Precious Trolley decks where like they're really gunning to get that done turn one, and you can turn Genesect on turn one. So if you're going first turn one and you have a Genesect and a tool in your hand, your opponent can't Precious Trolley, and that will slow their setup down, especially if they're set up around that. Like you put that card in your deck to make sure you're doing that turn one or turn two, because after that it just loses significant value. So ace specs are strong. Turning off ace specs should be considered a strong ability, and I think
Mm-hmm.
you have been preaching that for a very long time, and I would not be surprised if we're seeing more Genesect more over time, especially with more ace specs being printed.
Exactly, and as we go in our rogue deck of the week, I can talk about a game I played with this, with the Genesect in there, that basically changed the whole entire trajectory of the game. So, with all that being said, do you want me to talk about the rogue deck of the week and how it relates to our topic?
Absolutely, because the funny part is you didn't pick a deck that had all the good cards and none of the bad. You picked a deck that had a card from both categories in it, and I think the logic you made with building this deck and picking those cards makes sense. Again, it's one of those we said the cards that we were very critical of are not bad cards. They're overstuffed, but in the right context, they can be super value. And I think this week's deck, brings value to both of those cards from both of those categories.
Exactly. So this week's rogue deck of the week is Copperajah EX. For those who were at my locals, they saw me play this in my challenge. Yes, I know I did not do well. That's not because the deck was bad. That's more because I am learning the deck and I'm not a good pilot of it yet.
It's a good deck,
But,
bad pilot. Gotcha. Okay. I'm gonna
yeah.
clip that and keep that for the future.
But I actually really like this deck, and the more and more I'm playing it, I'm learning the lines of it. So for those who don't know, this card is centered around the big bronze elephant, Copperajah. It is a metal type stage 1 Pokemon, 300 HP, so big bulky boy, with the bronze body ability where it takes 30 less damage from attacks, and that is the key word there, from attacks. Just like that as is written. So keep that in mind as I go through the rest of the deck. So it takes 30 less damage from attacks, and then for 2 metal and a colorless, it does Nosequake for 260, and then you do 30 damage to your bench.
Oh, okay, so 30 to all your bench Pokemon. Gotcha.
But because of the bronze body ability, if you have a Copperajah on your bench, it doesn't take the damage because it reads from attacks, including your own attack.
Yeah. So
you're not hurting your main attacker, but ideally you want to have Munkidori down on your bench. So you're doing the 30 damage to all your Munkidoris. You're playing a lot of energy acceleration cards like Crispin, TM Turbo Energize. You have a Heavy Baton that you can put dark energy or really any energy on your board any way you like. And the idea is you're doing damage on your board just to move that damage to your opponent's board.
Gotcha. And what was the base attack or base damage for the Nosequake attack?
260.
260. So 2 Munkidoris plus a Nosequake can take out a Dragapult. 1 Munkidori and a Nosequake knocks out Gardevoir, or do you need 2?
You still need 2. It's only 290. But with this deck, it's so easy to set up your bench because your ace spec for the deck is Precious Trolley.
Okay.
So ideally, you want to go second, play Arven, grab the Trolley, grab TM Turbo Energize, and hopefully you'll have a way to get an energy in your hand, and then you can start getting your energy flood so quickly after that, and then start to just kind of steamroll your board state. And with you being a kind of more tanky deck, you can take these hits and then just move them on to your opponent's side once you get everything evolved up. And then I will say, I want to take credit for this list, but I did not create this Copperajah list. I saw this floating around on Twitter, and I thought it was really, really fun. And then it actually made day 2 in Seville. And I kind of took that list and I adjusted it a little bit because they played Devin's favorite card, the Squawkabilly EX.
I don't know why.
I did not agree with how that card feels in that deck. I played it in my league challenge with the Squawk. Did not use it once. I played it online. Did not use it once. So that's where I adjusted and put in the Genesect. And I am so glad that I made that adjustment. That Genesect just fits so well in this deck.
And you can attack with the Genesect because you're running a metal energy. So it isn't just a support mon. It can be a last-ditch attacker if you absolutely are desperate.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. If you're attacking a Genesect, you're in a bad situation. But normally with other lists that play Genesect, they can't attack. It's just there for the Ace Nullifier ability. But because you play Energy Switch and the Heavy Baton to move energy around, if you need to, you can do 100 damage with the Genesect. And I also added a rescue board to the list as well. I believe I took out either a research or I forgot what other card had the option. But I feel like the rescue board fits so well because the Munkidoris are 1 retreat cost. Your Genesect is 1 retreat cost, so you should make it whatever card you want be your pivoter. Ideally, in this case, you may want to put it on your Genesect to use the Ace Nullifier. And I remember playing a game. I just made this addition in this deck, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try the Genesect, see how I like it. And I was able to set it up turn 1. It was against a Dragapult. And the whole entire game, they could not unfair stamp me. I knew that was their ace spec. They showed it to me. And they couldn't do anything because of the rescue board on the Genesect. They actually had to use their Dusknoirs to knock out my Genesect, then unfair stamp me. And by the time that happened, I had game because I had two Munkidoris in play and another attacker, and I can take out their last Pokemon for a game. So it slowed my opponent down so much because the Dragapults really rely on the unfair stamp to disrupt their opponent. And without that ability, I just had everything I needed in my hand.
Gotcha. So this we'll have a deck showcase for this video on Friday at noon, the week at, or the day after this episode goes live. So keep an eye out for that. If you are looking forward to these deck showcases, definitely subscribe and click the ring notification bell on the YouTube channel if you are liking just more than us talking about these road decks, but showcasing them, really going and doing a couple matches with them, showing the pros and cons of them, and really this allows us to kind of just take and play and experiment with different archetypes and show them against the ladder on live. That's the one thing I think is always beneficial to this. It's that we're not doing in a vacuum testing. These are on the ladder against other people and other ideas. And sometimes you get to see it go against Blaziken and Greninja, and sometimes you get to see it go against Dragapult, and sometimes you get to see it go against Froslass EX. You never know what you're finding on those ladders. So it's always really fun when we showcase a rogue deck of the week on the ladder because it is always the Wild West out there.
Absolutely. And also, if you made it this far in the episode, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We are on a journey to 100 subscribers. Once we hit that goal, we will do a special rogue deck tournament with the decks that we picked out. We'll pick 8 decks and showcase them in an IRL tournament with me and my buddies and see which is the king of the rogue decks. So please help us get to that goal. We want to provide that live stream for you. But yeah, with all that being said, Devin, do you have any last words for our listeners this week?
No, I'm good. I mean, Milwaukee was interesting. We have 2 weeks between now and the next set of tournaments. And on the 17th, we have 4 different major events happening globally. So I'm very interested to see what that weekend's going to bring us. But we have now a time to kind of digest what we got, get ready for some pre-releases, and get to see what we're going to be the format's going to become in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely, I can't wait. I'm excited to go to some pre-releases myself. Trying to get hands on some of those Destined Rival cards and start practicing for NAIC. But thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Rogue Deck Chronicles. All this means the world to us, so thank you for listening. And with all that being said, have fun playing those sneaky decks.
Bye, guys.